At the airport, U.S. Marine Mike says goodbye to his girlfriend Jenny before flying to North Africa for a special mission. 3 months later, Mike and his spotter Tommy are in the African desert, waiting on top of a cliff for their assassination target. They see two groups approaching, one on foot and the other in a convoy of armed vehicles. The groups meet in the middle and Tommy and their commanding officer on the radio urge Mike to take the shot. However, Mike hesitates because it looks like a family reunion, not a terrorist meeting. Mike realizes it's a wedding and his target is the groom's father. He tells his commanding officer, who orders him to kill the groom to reach the target. Mike refuses to kill his civilian and lies, saying he lost the target. At that moment, a glare from their sniper scope reveals their location and the guards at the ceremony open fire. Mike shoots back and runs away with Tommy while the guards rush to evacuate their boss. Some guards pursue Mike and Tommy in vehicles, so they jump and roll down the hill. They hide behind rocks and Tommy calls for rescue, but their GPS is broken, so they can't give their exact position. The enemy gets closer, so Mike shoots at the hill to mislead them. Suddenly, the enemies leave because a sandstorm is coming. Mike and Tommy use the storm as cover and walk through it. Tommy calls their commanding officer, who tells them to reach a village 5 hours west for pickup. They get out of the storm and walk under the hot desert sun. Tommy talks about his family, but Mike stays quiet. Tommy, frustrated, asks Mike about Jenny and marriage. Mike says he wants to marry her, but it's complicated. They get a radio message saying the main team has complications, and they need to cross the desert to a new pickup spot. Due to the dunes, the radio won't always work, so they must be careful. After walking a lot, they encounter the sandstorm again and wait out. They see a man and child walking through the storm but don't shoot. A warning sign blows off a pole. Once the storm passes, they keep walking under the hot sun. A warning sign lands at Mike's feet. He can't read it, but the skull means danger. He remembers the USA had buried landmines in the area. Tommy thinks Mike is overreacting and says it's a local trick to keep enemies away from villages. Tommy insists on moving forward, believing the village is near. After hours of walking, Mike steps on something, but it's just a toy soldier. He puts it in his vest and sees Tommy is out of water, so he shares his own, trying to stay positive. Tommy starts teasing Mike for overthinking things and walks backward. Suddenly, there's a click and Mike tries to warn Tommy, but it's too late. Tommy steps on a landmine and it explodes, leaving him without his legs. Mike, frozen in shock, realizes he's also on a landmine and can't move. After the sand settles, Mike sees that Tommy is alive but in pain. He tries to calm Tommy down and explains the situation. Tommy, in agony, reaches for his bag with the radio, but is unable to due to the pain. Mike reminds him about their medicine injections in their vest, and Tommy takes both immediately. Desperate to help, Mike considers stepping away from the landmine, but it's too risky. Tommy insists that Mike should live and asks him to send love to his son before doing something drastic. Mike, overwhelmed with grief, controls himself and carefully lowers his body to confirm he's on a landmine. Unbeknownst to Mike, someone watches from afar but doesn't offer help. Mike then improvises a hook using his shoelaces, gun strap, and mask. After several attempts, he manages to drag his bag closer with the hook. However, the radio's battery is dead, and the spare is in Tommy's vest. Mike leaves the radio to charge in the sun. To pass the time, Mike goes over his supplies. After a few hours, the radio charges and he contacts his commanding officer for extraction, explaining their situation. The officer isn't pleased with the failed mission, and since Mike lacks GPS and is in a precarious situation, he's not considered a high priority for rescue. Helicopters can't fly due to sandstorms, so Mike has to wait 52 hours for a convoy to pick him up. He's unsure if he can survive that long, but has no choice. He starts a timer on his watch. The officer mentions that many mines are old and suggests a trench technique to survive. However, communication cuts off before he can explain further. Later, Mike eats some rations, realizing he doesn't have much left. A sandstorm approaches and he braces himself against the wind, trembling but determined not to trigger the landmine. After the storm, Mike finds Tommy's body pushed nearby. He covers Tommy's face and finds a picture of Tommy's family in his vest pocket. He takes a moment to honor his friend before grabbing the battery. Unfortunately, the wind has blown the bag out of reach, leaving him without access to the radio. Mike finds the situation ironically depressing and laughs. As time passes, Mike can only wait. He shields his head from the sun and drinks the last of his water. Desperate, he shoots bullets into the sky and shouts for help, but there's no response. He starts considering drastic measures when he sees a Berber man passing by. Mike points his gun and asks him to stop, but the man continues, possibly not understanding English. Mike tries to warn the Berber about the landmines by making exploding noises, but the Berber just mocks him. As the Berber approaches, he suddenly speaks English and asks why Mike is stuck. Mike explains his situation and asks for water through the radio. But the Berber doesn't help, only taking his flask and leaving. Hours later, Mike is forced to drink his own urine for hydration. A little girl, presumably the Berber's daughter, arrives and gives him water, indicating she understands his plight. She exchanges toy soldiers with Mike, silently encouraging him to move on. Mike calls for the radio again, unintentionally scaring the girl away. As the sun sets, Mike plays music on his phone and starts a fire. He's haunted by memories of his abusive father and struggles to sleep. He wakes abruptly and fends off wild dogs, eventually scaring them away with gunfire. The next day, the Berber returns and acknowledges Mike's survival as luck. He explains that he doesn't know where the landmines are and walks in a zigzag pattern to increase his chances of avoiding them. The Berber observes that Mike seems unable to move on physically because he's struggling to do so emotionally. This time, the Berber brings the radio, but it still doesn't work. He grabs Mike's face and urges him to be free, triggering a hallucination where Mike sees the Berber as Tommy, encouraging him to live. Hours later, Mike cuts his boot due to swelling and kills a scorpion with his knife. As the heat intensifies, he removes his vest, showing the toll the experience is taking on him mentally. He begins seeing hallucinations and interacts with them, believing they're real. Each interaction is accompanied by a clicking sound. In one hallucination, Tommy's body stands up, announcing they're going home, only to vanish. Mike continues trying to contact the base, but Tommy's hallucination warns him about draining the battery. Mike's phone rings, showing his dad's call, but Tommy reminds him it's not real. Mike pushes Tommy away, and Tommy reminds him that his inner demons are unresolved. Mike confides that Jenny rejected his proposal because she felt he needed to work on himself first. A flashback reveals Mike asking Jenny to marry him, and she declined for that reason. Exhausted, Mike almost falls asleep when the wild dogs return. They trigger a landmine and Mike shoots in the dark, but Tommy warns him of a dog approaching. Mike shoots the dog and Tommy advises him to try the trench technique. Mike begins digging desperately. The dogs attack, causing the landmine to explode and injure him. As he falls, Mike realizes the explosion was a hallucination, but the dogs are real and determined to attack. Mike grabs his knife and begins killing the wild dogs one by one, sustaining multiple bite wounds. As he fights, he reflects on past instances of abuse. By morning, all the dogs are dead, and Mike has survived. Finally, the radio activates, informing him that the convoy is delayed due to an attack, but he'll be picked up in 17 hours. Realizing his survival chances are low, Mike connects with Jenny through the base. He apologizes for the chaos he brings, but the communication ends before Jenny can respond and Mike passes out. The Berber finds him and tends to his wounds, revealing his own history of surviving a landmine explosion and finding solace in his wife. He gives Mike medicine, warning of increased hallucinations. Mike mentions the little girl, but the Berber reveals she was his daughter who died in a landmine accident. He used to gather landmines for sale with her help. The Berber leaves and Mike hallucinates seeing his daughter beside him. Then the medicine intensifies his hallucinations and he experiences flashbacks of childhood abuse and happier moments with Jenny. Amidst the memories, he recalls leaving his mother with his abusive father, leading to her hospitalization. In another memory, Mike and Tommy witness a confrontation where Jenny is harassed. Furious, Mike remembers defending Jenny in a bar fight, unleashing his pent-up aggression on the harassers. His hallucinations blend with his father reappearing to punch him. Mike's mind shifts between the desert and the memory of his mother dying in the hospital, fueling his guilt. It's Tommy's vision that snaps him back to reality, warning him that the convoy is approaching. A voice on the radio tries to contact him, but Mike's dry throat makes it difficult to respond. He tries waving, but he's too far to be seen. Tommy reminds him of the smoke grenade, but as Mike reaches for it, an enemy sniper shoots him. Thinking of Jenny for encouragement, Mike bends over, grabs the smoke grenade, but is shot again, causing him to drop it. Memories of arguments with Jenny and his departure flood his mind as he fires back, hitting several enemies before running out of bullets. His father appears again and Mike recalls his mother telling him to let her go. Overwhelmed, Mike points his gun at his father's hallucination, but thinking of Jenny, he decides not to shoot. Instead, he remembers how Jenny helped him move on. The convoy won't wait much longer and the grenade is out of reach. Mike recalls the Berber's advice and carefully steps off the supposed mine, which turns out to be a can left by the girl. Inside, he finds a toy soldier. Laughing in relief, Mike activates the smoke grenade just in time for the convoy to rescue him. Sometime later, a healed Mike returns to the USA and reunites with Jenny, ready to start a better life together. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.